So now is the moment that you've been waiting for, because the era of cave painting marks the birth of style. And we can't talk about the birth of style without mentioning this lovely chubby lady. Have you seen her before? She is arguably one of the most famous and important sculptures that we have in our history. She is known as the Venus of Willendorf, and she dates from about 25,000 years BCE. And there she is. She's only a few inches tall, and she is intricately carved. She's naked with these lovely full bosoms and a nice round belly. We're not even sure if she's pregnant or not. She might be. Obviously, she has something to do with fertility. But why she is of interest to fashion historians is because of her head. Take a look at her head. What is going on there? It has been the cause of so much speculation. Is it a hat? If it's a hat, it is knitted, which shows that there was knitting 25,000 years BC. Is it her hair? If it's her hair, is it curled? Are these some kind of cornrows? Either way, this is style. Here she is from the side. She is not the only chubby figure we have found from this era. They are everywhere in Northern Europe. We think it was some kind of fertility cult, for example, something like that. Wild speculation, who knows? But what's of interest to us is what is going on her head. What do you think? Is it hair? Or is it a knitted hat? Nobody knows for sure, but it's certainly stylish, and it shows an intent, doesn't it? It shows an intent to wear something that looks good. Just as famous is this tiny little figurine from France. She is called the Venus of Bresampuy, which is really fun to say. She dates from about 23,000 years BC. And again, what's going on her head? Is that her hair? Is it supposed to represent some kind of braids or plaits? More likely, it's a headdress, intricately made and really good looking. Is this the birth of fashion? Absolutely, because both the Venus of Bresampuy and the Venus of Willendorf belong to a culture that is very well known to us. Gravettian culture, which dates from about 35,000 years BC to 22,000 years BCE. BC or BCE. BC before Christ, BCE before the Common Era. Either are good. Gravettian culture comes from Northern Europe, this area here, but particularly sort of Hungary, Romania, that kind of area. We're really talking Ice Age business here. Everywhere you see in white there counts as Gravettian culture and has produced evidence of Gravettian culture. And we know a lot about how Gravettians dressed. Because of this guy, he is known as the Prince. We simply call him the Prince, and he is not the only one to have been found buried. Like this, I want you to take a look at all of those little white bits on him, on his bones. They are shells and teeth. He is not the only person to have been found buried with all of these little shells and teeth. And what is interesting is that every single one of these tiny shells or tiny animal teeth is perforated. Each one has a tiny little hole in it. This is what his grave looks like. This is a wonderful diagram to show you what archaeologists found. But what is really nifty is that all of these shells and teeth were in rows. His clothing, the leather of his outfit, had worn away through the millennia, but the shells and teeth remained. And that is what they looked like. When he was found, all of the shells corresponded absolutely to how they looked on his tunic. They were sewn onto his leather tunic, onto his leather pants, as you can see there, even onto his boots, as well as this completely shell and teeth skull cap he was wearing. He didn't have to do this. Gravettian people did not have to sew a zillion shells and teeth onto their leather clothing. This was the Ice Age, right? They were still nomadic, and yet they took the time to do this. Why? Because it looked good. Because they cared about what they look. Obviously, to be able to do this, and I'm sure the prince, as he is known, did not do this himself. Somebody else did this for him. It shows status, doesn't it? It shows some kind of wealth, some sort of importance. Absolutely incredible. Gravettian culture, you can say Gravettian or Gravettian, also marks the beginning of textiles. We haven't found any actual textiles, but we have found imprints of textiles on stones from graves. You can take a look here. These are the stones that have been found, the little rocks that a body was buried upon, and then over time, the imprint of the weave made its mark in the stones, so we know that they were weaving 35,000 years ago. So, warmer climates and a bit of speculation, but it is speculation grounded in fact. There is absolutely nothing to suggest that people of the Neolithic and Paleolithic eras living in the southern hemisphere didn't utilize attire and physical presentation in exactly the same way that tribal people in Africa, Australia, the rainforest, etc. do today. Like this. Or this. Or this. Tribal attire is just as important and significant as non-tribal attire. It is used to signify things, signify status, to signify bravery, to signify spiritual elements, and also to show a sense of belonging. And you know what? It also looks good. Tribal people, no matter which tribe you are looking at, a tribe in West Africa, a tribe in the rainforest, they want to look good. And they do look good. All of these people look great, and there is nothing to suggest that people in warmer climates in the Paleolithic and Neolithic periods didn't do exactly the same. And you know what? We do have a little bit of evidence that they do. This is a cave painting. This is from the Bradshaw rock paintings. This is what they are called in Australia, which was extremely warm in the Neolithic and Paleolithic era. So, take a look at this figure. What is going on here? Here he is again, a little bit clearer in a black stencil. So, it doesn't take too much imagination, that wonderful gift that we have, to figure out the kind of clothes that he was wearing. All we need to do is look at a contemporary tribe in the southern hemisphere. This is the wonderful Dogon tribe from West Africa. Here they are in ceremonial dress, and really all we have to do is take a few elements from the Dogon tribe, and I just chose the Dogon tribe at random, and place these elements over our Paleolithic man from the Bradshaw caves, with feathers and beads and straw and this incredible headdress. and we start to get an idea of how people dressed and the importance and significance of clothing in the southern hemisphere, in the Paleolithic and Neolithic regions. That's pretty nifty, isn't it? Who or what were Bog People? Well, here are a couple of them. Bog People is the umbrella term, and it's not very pretty, is it, for the human remains that have been found in peat bogs, marshy peat bogs, and the damp condition of the bogs, and how peat is chemically made up, have preserved these bodies and often their clothing for posterity. The earliest bog person we have found thus far dates back about 6,000 years, and the end of the first important bog period was about 100 years BC. Bog people are extremely important and really very interesting and rather creepy. Anyone found in a Neolithic bog came to a bad end. Most of these bodies were, we believe, victims of human sacrifice. We say victims, maybe they wanted to be sacrificed, who knows? We know that in Aztec culture, people were practically lining up to be sacrificed. Who knows if it was the same in Europe, which is where these bodies were found, and they were found all over Europe, in Ireland, in Britain, on mainland Europe. But they nearly all had a violent death. We think that some may have actually been murdered illegally and then thrown into the peat bog to hide their bodies. Some may have been executed. You see the guy on the right, he was hanged because there's a ligature around his neck, so he was either strangled or hanged. By the way, the past tense of hanging a person is hanged. It's not hung. It's just one of those weird little English language things. You can say, oh, I hung up my coat. But you say, a person was hanged. Just so you know, I'm saying it right. Some may have been the ritualistic victims of cannibalism. All kinds of nasty fates befell the people who ended up in bogs. They are of both genders, of all ages. There are bog children, there are bog women. But they really do give us an incredible insight into life in the Neolithic. First of all, they give us an idea of hairdos. Nearly everybody had a hairdo. They didn't just have long, crazy manes of unbrushed hair. No, look at this. Very cute, actually, this hairdo. It's sort of a side top knot, intricately twisted. This guy, he's not looking too good now. He was obviously a victim of sacrifice. And look at his hair. What is going on there? Well, this is a reconstruction of this incredible hairdo. It was shaved at the front, and believe it or not, he used imported hair gel. Yeah, imported hair gel. This body was found in Ireland, and he used a kind of gel resin in his hair from Spanish pine. So his hair gel originated in Spain, and of course there was trade during this time. And he got hold of some Spanish hair gel to get this lovely pompadour, to make him look taller, to make him look fierce, to make him look stylish. It was a look. So obviously people really, really cared about how they looked. Some of these bog people even had manicures. This hand comes from a bog guy who, when he was killed, had just received a perfect manicure. What with hair gel and manicures, this is male grooming. Male grooming in the Neolithic or Bronze Age. Wow. People really haven't changed, have they? But the point is, it mattered to people how they looked, how they presented themselves. They wanted to have nice nails. But best of all, Because of the preservative nature of peat, bog people have left us actual clothing that is extremely recognizable to us. Take a look at just some of these outfits that have been preserved. Oh my god, they are so contemporary. Take a look at the first one. That's like a little crop top and miniskirt, isn't it? The one next to it is très chic. These are recognizable clothing, and this is real clothing that's been found. And we could honestly wear any one of these outfits today. Oh, you're thinking that Prof. Halle, Prof. H, she's always making these grand claims. We could wear any one of these outfits today and we'd look normal. Surely not. No, we could. Let's take this dress. I love this dress. And let's put it on a contemporary girl. Let's team it, as they say in styling circles. Let's team it with a little sequined bolero. Let's give her some lovely sandals, some very trendy jeweled sandals. Let's give her the Alexander McQueen skull scarf, some great chandelier earrings, and suddenly, hey, that dress looks great on a 21st century girl. And of course, just to show how fashionable she is, we'll give her the Vuitton graffiti bag. And let's put her in New York City. She does not look out of place. Nobody would do a double take and say, oh my God, why is that girl wearing a Neolithic clothing? They wouldn't think that. Let's give her a friend. Let's put her in a Neolithic outfit too, along with a matching hat and a chunky scarf. She just looks super trendy. They both do. They look like LIM students, and yet they are wearing clothes that are thousands and thousands of years old. We'll give her a designer bag too. See? They fit right in. The human aesthetic. Some things never change, do they? Because you know what? Good ideas don't need to change. First of all, when it comes to clothing, we are kind of limited, aren't we? Why? Because of the human body. We have a torso, 2 legs, 2 arms, feet, hands, a neck, and a head. This kind of dictates how far we can go with clothing. But when it comes to actual garments and the aesthetic of garments, some ideas have never changed because good ideas don't have to. Again, let's look at this fabulous dress and take a look at some recent runway. Look at these beautiful dresses, and they are essentially the same as this Neolithic dress. Good ideas don't change, and we find that throughout the history of costume. All right, we cannot talk about this era without mentioning one of history's most famous, iconic people, Otzi the Iceman, who lived about 3,300 years BC, so about 5,000 years ago. And here he is, not looking so swift, is he? Now, Otzi is not a bog person. He's an Iceman. He was discovered in a block of ice, right in the Otzi region of the Alps. He was discovered in the early 1990s, and we have learned a lot from Otzi. He has been reconstructed, and this is what he looked like. He was probably in his early 40s when he died. He was a hunter. We know this because all of his stuff, all of his kit was found preserved in the ice with him. Spears and arrowheads, etc. But here's the interesting thing. Otzi was murdered. He was shot by an arrow through the back. So he was running away from someone when he was shot through the heart, through the back, by an arrow fell and died in the Alps, was left there for 5,000 years, and then we found him. Was he murdered by a baddie? Or was he the baddie and he was being chased by the goodies? We don't know. We do not know why Otzi was murdered, but he is the first murder mystery. He's the first whodunit. That's how he was found. Obviously he was running, he was shot, and stumbled. There is Otzi. Otzi is covered in tattoos. I think he has about 40 tattoos. These strange little lines, almost like barcodes. They are all over his body. There is speculation as to what these tattoos signify. Originally, people thought that they marked maybe the number of kills, the number of, antelope he'd killed, or something like that, sort of like trophies. But more recently, we've discovered that each one of these tattoos corresponds to a pressure point in the human body that is used in acupuncture. So maybe this was some kind of early medicine. Maybe these tattoos took the place of acupuncture by putting a pressure on areas of Otzi that hurt. And his body and his bones show signs of him being hurt quite a lot. Broken bones and fractures and all of this kind of thing. Life was rough in the Ice Age. Here is a diagram that shows just some of these many tattoos. And speaking of tattoos, this is Brad Pitt, who has a tattoo of Otzi on his arm. I think that's kind of nifty. But why Otzi is so important to us fashion historians, is that along with his body, his clothing was preserved. And it really gives the first indication of a fashion industry. Let's watch Otzi getting dressed. Okay, he started by putting on a leather belt. From his leather belt, sort of like suspenders, garters, he attached his leggings. All of this was made of leather. Then he put a loincloth on. He draped it through his belt to protect his private parts. And then he put on his shoes, and we'll look at his shoes in a second. And then this beautifully tailored hide coat. It's gorgeous. I would love a coat like this for winter. Then he wore a cape made out of straw. Why straw? Straw is great insulation. He needed to be warm. Also, straw is waterproof, isn't it? So this was very clever, and it was beautifully woven, and it had a matching hat. And all of this stuff was found, preserved in the ice. This is his belt, along with a couple of other artifacts. But what is most impressive are his shoes. This is a reconstruction of his shoe. As you can see, it's made of leather and twine, and it was stuffed with straw to keep his feet warm and to give him a soft tread. Here is a diagram of the shoe. It is so beautifully constructed. It's very complicated. We know that Otzi was a hunter. He did not make this shoe. That wasn't his job. Otzi's shoe indicates that in whichever village he lived in or which tribe he came from, there was somebody who specialized in making shoes. There was a cobbler. Otzi paid a person to make his shoes. He probably traded meat for shoes, or leather, or fur for his shoes. But this really proves that there was a fashion industry. There was a garment industry during this era. People who specialized in making a particular garment and trading it for something that they needed.